Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain, and it is 2021. Boy, are we glad to be here, to be alive.
Well,
as a
it
matter of
is.
fact.
It is actually something very cheering. I'm Ayo Makinde, and I bid you all welcome to the new year and to the first episode of Sunrise Daily.
Which happens to be on a Friday. Oh, boy. Oh, dear.
Well, I mean, these things do happen. We haven't had a presidential broadcast on the first day of the year for a while.
You saw the responses when it was put out that he was going to speak. Man, I was like, are you guys sure? What's happening? Is it going to be... Well, you've just heard it. That's it there. So it's a new year and lots of... you heard it. Quite a number of focus. A lot of focus on young people, youths. His plan to fulfill the NSAS
significant
objectives.
Focus, actually, to say, look, you have spoken and we have heard you clearly. In fact, he said your voice is very clear. He also talked about his commitment to the 545 demands of the youths, and also promised collaboration with the legislature to create an enabling environment for young people to thrive in the country. And that is really cheering. It is good talk.
Speaking about collaboration with the National Assembly, I mean, one good collaboration, or one collaboration that lots of people like to see, Electoral Act, bam, sign it into law. And, everybody feel, wow, this is great. Now you could go ahead and try some things.
No, one thing I'm looking forward to, of course, yes, the Not Too Young to Run has been signed into law, but how active is it? We had this conversation yesterday with a couple of friends, the guy who joined us from Benue State and Wokovia, who came here. And we spoke a little about, how the youths can drive in politics. Talked about money politics and all those things. But one thing was clear. Money is still always going to be playing a role. In fact, as a matter of fact, at some point, one of them said, look, they use the youth for all kinds of things. In fact, one of them said as much as almost saying they use the youth to rig elections. Oh, boy. And I like, oh, did you just say that? I said, come on, man. It happens. It's public knowledge. So that the people who snatch ballot boxes, who, do all these things, they are, the young people who are agile enough to do all of that. But they have the numbers. So this is, well, as I said, it's good talk. How it is going to be acted upon, that's another thing altogether. And it'll be wonderful to get perspectives from those who know. Well,
yes, indeed. So that we will, examine as we progress, but not without having a look at how are the dailies reflecting what's going on. Well, maybe you thought that, the dailies were going to be what? On holiday for the new year.
Talk about essential services.
But they're here, they're working as well. So we have some dailies which we will take a look at now. Well, it will be briefly. It's a new year, so you know how some of these things are. So what do we do? Well, we'll come back to that in a moment. All right, take a look at the Guardian newspaper. In 2021, we shall tackle insecurity, economy, corruption, says Buhari. Atiku blames woes on lazy, uninspiring leadership. Governors promise different packages to mitigate hardship. UN calls for global peace cooperation. We'll pass petroleum, other bills to boost economy, Lawan declares. Well, that means Electoral Act will be there, hopefully, to boost the electoral process. Saraki urges all to unite towards finding solutions. And then right at the bottom strip here, Nigeria, others face bottlenecks as AFTA kicks off today. Whoa! Businesses raise concerns about country's implementation strategy. Look, you will get a lot of focus on this as we progress, and hoping that it won't just be talk shops or talking heads, that the authorities will in turn listen to what they're saying and do something, because look, if we don't, our economy might just be at risk.
AFTA is not the only thing taking off today.
Yeah.
Come out 2020.
Oh boy.
Yeah. The Vanguard newspaper is next, and it looks at the same speech of the president in its lead. State of the nation, our achievements not sufficient. promises to reorganize security apparatus, assures youths on fulfilling NSAR's demands. That took, if you look at it, percentage-wise, took about 20%. Kept talking about the youth, 20% or thereabout of the speech. I'm not very good with maths. Maybe we'll ask Julie about that one. But that's what you have on the lead of the paper this morning, and so many other issues begging for attention right there on the front page of the paper. Back page, of course, has sports. Raw says 2020, not good for Super Eagles. Yeah, right. That's the verdict.
Look at Nigerian Tribune this morning. Camels used to smuggle deadly weapons into Nigeria. ACF, ransom money being used to buy illegal arms. So we better be warned. Biden appoints another Nigerian American, Okolo, COVID policy advisor. So there you go. That's what you see right there, right now, as you just see all of that playing out. So that is Tribune this morning. So we're going to go right on into our focus this morning and introducing our guests who are joining us from Lagos and Abuja, as a matter of fact, as we end up with the daily. So Dr. Emeka Okogu is a development specialist. He'll be joining us from our studios in Abuja. Good morning and thank you for joining us. And then we also have Dr. Boko Kiari, former chairman, Nigeria Economic Summit Group. Good morning. And thank you for joining us as well today. Okay. All right, Mr. Gary, let's start off with you. Haven't heard a lot of what the president has said today about his speech, the first day of the year. Almost, it's all there for the breakdown. What struck you? What stands out for you listening to this speech?
Good morning, Chamberlain. I think one is that the three critical pieces of priorities were re-stressed or reiterated by the president, which are security, the economy, and anti-corruption. A review of the year showed that a mention was made about the 300 boys that were rescued, and there was praise of the security forces. And at the same time, he also mentioned that there is a need for enhancement of capacities of the security agencies. And to me, that basically means that the security agencies have not met up with our aspirations as a nation. It's like having a student who has taken a 100-question test and managed to get one correct, and therefore you begin to praise them. So to me, there is a clear lack of focus or lack of leadership by the securities agencies, and we need to be quite candid about that. A reflection of the year so far means that not only was COVID mentioned only once, and the effect of COVID to the economy and to the lives and well-being of Nigerians. I believe that all of those would also there is an honesty in the remarks if you read between the lines, and to me that is the beginning of any change that one would expect from the president. I think Mr. President also mentioned about focusing on the economy, but there was very little mention of the other things that needs to happen. But clearly all the rhetorics were clearly highlighted. And so the presentation on food security, the discussion on the reforms in the power sector, whether it is generation or distribution, the effect of integration of the African continent, which basically means that the AFCFTA has become something of major concern for the ways, and also identifying that Nigerians have entrepreneurship drive And we need a support and encouragement of government, especially with the opening of the borders, which he clearly mentioned. There is something that he also mentioned, which is that we as a nation want to have an open, fair, and equitable way of conducting ourselves. I think those rhetorics need to be backed with tangible, very strong support, because some of us, even when the borders were closed, of course, we do remember that there were smugglings at the border, not only of goods and services, but also of arms and ammunition and so on and so forth. But this is something that required bilateral or multilateral relationship with our neighbors so that those are stopped. Clearly, he also brought up the extreme poverty in parts of the country, and therefore put in the necessary social or humanitarian policies. Awareness as far as sufficiency of what we need to do to bring out the very best in the country. And I think those were all honest reflections. Now, what I would have liked to see is what are we doing in terms of dealing with how we are going to position ourselves to the Africa Free Trade Agreement, which starts, by the way, today. Today is the first day of having one single integrated economy. If you look at Africa's collective GDP, it's about $3 trillion. That puts Africa, if it were a single nation, at about fourth or fifth largest economy in the world. And the per capita income of Africa would still be very low, approximately $3,000 or slightly less than that, if you divide the 3 trillion or over 3 trillion by 1.1 or 1.2 billion people. But if the friction of trade is removed, it basically means that the opportunities that AFCFTA and the opportunities that is presented to us with the support and encouragement of government, I believe that we can do massively. The growth in Africa as a continent can be phenomenal. And I understand that even though it is a smaller fraction of the global economy, as a Nigeria, it may be what we need to push ourselves in placing us as the center for the continental opportunities that present itself. So to me, there is that. But the end, I wish Mr. President were coming out and talking to us periodically, even if it is once a quarter, to understand where the vision of this government is and how people can also play their parts. But as they say, it's never, it's better be, it's something that we need occasionally so that with 2020, which to me is, for the first time, that statement of 2020 is hindsight. And for us, I think it should be a hindsight because it's a year that had been prone with a lot of problems. Yeah. And I do believe very strongly that we as a nation need to be hopeful and we need to see more and hear more from our president. Thank you.
Well, hopefully the media team will take that on board because, I mean, that communication going on, I think will engender a lot of confidence. People will understand where the government is going, especially now that we're talking about AFTA and then the other documents that are going to kick in this year. It's going to be huge.
Well, it's actually going to be significant. But let me ask Dr. Okengo something, especially from what he also said, because Dr. Okengo, when we look at the president's speech, if you agree or you want to take off from where Mr. Dr. Bukakari stopped, he talked about the need for government to be clear about its vision. The question that came to my mind the moment I heard that is, shouldn't we line up the president or the administration's vision with a national vision in line with the speech that you have heard?
Well, thank you very much. Let me start by saying Happy New Year. It's going to be a new year for everybody. It's going to be a good year. For me, I think the national vision most of the times, has to do with the vision of the administration in power. Okay, except you're talking about the national vision as being encapsulated in the Constitution. And in this state, the national vision would have been the C that the president mentioned, which would be security, economy, and then anti-corruption. But for me, the speech first was very sovereign, it was very solemn, it was very truthful, and I think the president spoke to all the issues, as it were. But my take on it was two things caught my attention. First, because it was a youth thing. He reiterated that every demand, from the youths during the NSAS process, the government was going to be working to make certain they were all met. And he stayed on that youth matter in almost all aspects of his speech. Thereafter, he started talking about food security, which I think is the greatest and the primary focus, because everything about the sea you can actually tie more or less to food security, because that's the foundation, for national security, as it were. That's the foundation, for job security, if you may. That's also the foundation, for health security. So if we're going to be focusing on food security and then you tie it, to the transportation that he mentioned, and then I was very pleased when he didn't just talk about the rail transportation. He took it all the way to even now building the dirt roads, making our transportation systems, intermodal. And of course, he talked about power. For me, yes, a speech is what it is. If the president was going to be dealing with every wish of every Nigerian, then the speech would have taken as much as 18 hours and probably not the 18 minutes that it took. But I think it's for his lieutenant, I think it's for the citizens to be able to now see what aspect of that speech that sits best with them and how we can be able to now have citizens' participation. For me, I think that when he was mentioning, re-engineering the security agencies, and internal aggression, I thought what I wanted to hear was, that there was also going to be who monitors the monitor, okay? Because he was talking about aligning all the government agencies and parastatals, MDAs to have a common approach to corruption. But if corruption is within, then there has to be, a mechanism that can also now ensure that those who, are charged with keeping corruption away also now play by the rules. And having said that, I think in all, the president didn't shy away from the fact that we hadn't done so well, or we hadn't met, if you may, the expectations of Nigerians holistically, vis-a-vis, the Boko Haram insurgencies and, even job creation and infrastructure development, if you may. And some of it he tied to the situation that they met on ground, which he mentioned. The others he tied to insurgencies. Of course, he brought in, the COVID and people living responsibly, and then, everybody taking their destinies into their hands technically, and then, when we're going to be getting the vaccines. In that state, I also thought that part of what he would have also mentioned, was the effort we are making as a country in finding these solutions, especially the vaccine problems, locally.
Dr. Kengo, if you don't mind me
pointing, just president.
My apologies. Just one moment. You talked about that aspect of the president's speech, where he mentioned the need to reorganize and work on the security apparatus. Well, that is taking, but the concern that I have and have had over time is, why does it seem like every time we talk about security agencies, we talk a lot about the police and the army. In fact, the army more than the police. It's supposed to be the reverse. But there are a good number of other security agencies that we don't even talk about in most of the time. We have 3 agencies who are in charge of intelligence gathering to ensure that these things don't happen in the first place. This work of security agencies is supposed to prevent as opposed to fighting insecurity and all of that. So we have the NCDC, we have the FRSC, we have immigration, we have customs, we have so many other agencies of government in the security apparatus, but we hardly talk about them. One wonders, if that speech, from your perspective, is also talking about these elements in our security apparatus.
So I'm trying to tell you that, you see, yes, when the president mentions all the MDAs, of course, I mean, it's inferred. Okay, but I think if you want us to talk about our security, systems, I think the major problem is that we've not been able to build, the proper synergies between those that are kinetic and those that are non-kinetic. Okay, and I don't think we've been able to even identify and integrate them. There are even some other, security agencies that are not even in the kinetic and non-kinetic, but by the nature of the work they do. I mean, you should be able to class WAEC and NECO and all those as part of our security, systems, because it's all about building our national infrastructure for what we call security. And remember, again, that food security is also part of security. Health security is also part of security. Job security is also part of security. Okay, income generation, revenue is also part of security. These are all the things, that make up your security architecture and infrastructure. My point is that I didn't see the president, come out clearly to say we are going to now make certain that we are also going to be, putting these guys in the right stead by also making certain that they adhere to their rules of engagement, probably by creating, some systems of monitoring to now monitor, or what you can call the master monitors. And again, what I also didn't see when he was talking about, our justice system, was that determination for us, because you see, everything that has happened in Nigeria, you can actually tie, to our faulty justice system. The moment people have access, to justice, and that justice is quick, and then we all adhere to the rule of law. Again, if you're talking about economic development or national integration, or somebody owning up to being, if you want to build the Nigerianness in all of us, it has to be built, okay, with our equal access to security, to social justice. The moment you can have a justice system that is fair and free and affordable and available to all, every other thing that we're talking about would naturally fall in place. So you're right, yes. I think we must be able to build a proper security architecture, that now begins to now build interoperable, data sharing modules from all, strata of security. Some can now, be high tech, some would be, low range. And by the end of the day, everybody is able to communicate with everybody based on the kind of services that they offer. But I think what is important is that I was proud as Nigerian listening to my president this morning. I saw a president who wasn't ready to ride roughshod, who was ready to take blames where the blames, who was ready to accept, that we hadn't done as much as Nigerians expected, from him, and who was also determined, to now make certain that those things he can do within his power. And he kept, reiterating that he was going to do everything in his power, without fear, nor favor. And I think that is the kind of speech, that Nigerians will want. And yes, and I want to also, stand on the side of Kachem to say, yes, we'll be needing, this kind of speech. I don't even think a quarter going forward now, because we're entering into very strong headwinds, which the president also acknowledged. I think seeing him speaking, him sitting in that fatherly road and looking as fatherly, as he was looking this morning, would generate a lot of hope, in the teeming Nigerians, and then, a lot of us in the population, especially, those who believe in him.
Okay. Mr. Kyari, part of what the president did say in that speech was he did acknowledge that, groups like Boko Haram have thwarted some of those social policies, associated investments that the government needs to put in place. And he also did say, yes, he knows that there are some compatriots that the successes that they've recorded may not be as fast or as good as they want. He doesn't begrudge them. But you did make reference to after, which is very crucial to our economy moving forward. I reckon that may affect the way we budget moving forward. It would affect the way so many things are done. But I know that MAN and several other groups have raised concerns in terms of what they like to see. But now that we've signed on, this is going to kick on. It's already kicked in, as a matter of fact. I had to wake up on that one. What are the quick wins, the low-hanging fruits that we really need to address? Because whether we like it or not, if we don't take certain steps, I mean, the youths which we thought we were trying to address, we just may have a lot more problems in our hands because we're competing with the rest of Africa now.
Indeed, Chamberlain. I think there is that element of, when one reflects and one carefully listens to what Mr. President had highlighted, I think one would say that there is really candor and honesty in it. The opportunity which I highlighted that is presented to us here by the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is that it's an opportunity of a single market that's worth $3 trillion. And if we have intra-Africa trade increase from somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 or 16% today to say 50 or 60%, that basically means that the acceleration of the opportunities indirectly means that there would be an acceleration of economic growth and development across the entire continent. Now, there are some key ingredients that we need in Nigeria to be competitive within the continent. And those were some of the things highlighted, which is that there are both hard infrastructure that we must invest in. The railways, that's the transportation sector, the roads, bridges, et cetera, but also the investments in certain, the software side of things. For example, Mr. President highlighted the creative industry. And even before the Africa Free Trade Agreement, Nigeria's Nollywood and the extensive growth in that space. Anytime you go into any of the other African countries, for example, in East Africa, you hear Nigeria's music and movies have taken over. And so what you begin to realize is that there is really opportunity to harness those key aspects. The other thing, which is one of the areas that I have been, in my past life, I was a technology guy coming from Silicon Valley 20 years back home. And the opportunities in that space is fantastic. Two young people started a company in 2016, and not this year, but in 2020, towards the end of 2020, Paystack was sold for $200 million. Now, that has nothing to do with government, except that there must be enabling environment for thousands of such firms to be around, to grow, to actually make their mark, not only in Africa, but globally speaking. So those, and I am glad that Mr. President also touched on the youth as a segment of the population that, given those opportunities, they can actually take it and run with it. So some of the industries are what I call intellectual capital or intellectual property industries, and leadership role for that matter, because when one looks at the investments made from outside in the fintech sector or technology generally speaking, the largest share of those investments that have come in over the last 3 years are primarily into Nigeria, maybe Egypt and Kenya, and of course, South Africa. But Nigeria leads the way in those investments. Now, guess what? With the opportunity of a $3 trillion continental investor-friendly policies and the investments in infrastructure, all of those would actually boost growth and make the living standards of the average African, by extension, the average Nigerian, better than it had been. Now, the other thing, though, is that security means security in all aspects, as the good doctor had highlighted, because food security is an element of security. And so what I mean by that is that even the fairness in rule of law, contractual obligations, enhancement of all of those aspects are all aspects of security that would make us more attractive, and that would also encourage our citizens to go into business without fear of confiscation or abuse or whatever else. And
Harry,
I think
on that, if you
of
don't
course,
mind me
the
punctuating, if you don't mind me punctuating on that investment aspect
Sure.
that you just talked about, beg your pardon, one thing stands out for me is the fact that the president is talking about creating an enabling environment. I'd like you to ask Dr. Okengo, who's a development specialist on this. He's talking about creating an enabling environment for young people with collaboration of the legislature and a few others like that. One of the challenges a good number of business people in Nigeria have had is that of being able to get their businesses done easily. The ease of doing business is not as good or as strong as it ought to be, with so many agencies asking for so many funds, so many taxes, so many levies, and the KAMA is kicking in as well this year. Line up, if you don't mind, the speech of the president with that commitment that we need to make to ensure that young people can actually thrive in business in line with what the president has said and the laws of the land.
I think for business, the most important document to develop a business is not even money. It's what you call your business plan. And it's what you call a bankable business plan. And 80% of the times, you don't develop a bankable business plan, with debt funding. You develop it with green funding or patient capital, not even equity funding. Okay, and this is where I think government must be focusing if they're talking about developing that, enabling environment. Okay, the enabling environment will be, to be able to create synergies where you can now have what they call commercial cooperatives. Okay, where it is all about volume for value. What do I mean by volume for value? If you look at the Chinese model, you find that you go to a market and you see all sorts of goods, carrying the same, coming out of the same mode. But they're being produced by thousands and thousands of small cooperatives that are now aggregated. But for that to happen, you must be able to now create that market niche or that market share. And then for that business to be able to thrive, you need to find where you put in, what you call your business development funding, where you put in your equity, and then where you start going towards your debt. And again, this is where your local content comes in. This is where competitiveness comes in. If I've been talking about after, some of us had argued that we are not really ready for after. And then a day to starting after, the people in charge says, you know what, even the customs of most African countries don't even have what it takes to be able to run after. And then it's more worrisome when you're looking at after being mostly, fixated on trade. And we're not even trading products that we're producing locally. This opening of our borders, 80% of, the goods and services that are going to be coming in through the borders, as commodities are not even coming from the countries that are bordering us directly. Most of them are coming from far away, Europe, where they have a more organized, market. Dr. Carey had talked about Africa being a $3 trillion, dollar economy. But, for us to be able to benefit from that $3 trillion and then help use it to now create what you call, proper per capita incomes, you have to tie it to productivity. And productivity has to be tied to two very, critical elements. One is skill. And please remember that there's a difference between skill and education. They are technically, well, yes, education is involved in skill, but you don't have to have formal education to be skilled. Okay, well, so Dr. Kego, it is important that we also now develop, and this is where, these institutions, our technical colleges, our technical institutions, our training centers have to be brought,
all right, then. Well,
brought
clearly,
back into service.
This is,
so it is not...
Well, a good thing is just the first day of the year, so we'll have a lot of opportunity to explore this subject matter in detail, because I imagine that there'll be a lot of ears open to listen and see what can we do having kicked in. But we have to thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning, Dr. Emeka Okegwu, Development Specialist, as well as Dr. Boko Kiari, former Chairman, Nigeria Economic Summit Group. Thank you, gentlemen, and Happy New Year. All right. Okay, so we're back in a moment. Join us again. Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. It's year 2021, but you know, in retrospect, the year gone by was very, very eventful, and perhaps a lot more than expected, with prevailing, prominent, and pressing issues always at play. Well, what issues stood out for you in the year? Well, you can share with us. You know our Twitter handle at Sunrise Daily now. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and remind you of some of the issues, major issues that made up 2020, even as we get ready to make the best of this year, 2021, individually and as a nation.
Well, two issues you would understand seem to take the cake in the year 2020. And that's health, the insecurity and health.
Yeah.
Let's start with the security, but the killing of the rice farmers in Zabamari, Borno State, and the abduction and subsequent release of more than 300 schoolboys in Kankara, Katsina State, are recent security challenges Nigeria faced in the year 2020, which only went to emphasize the security gaps that we came into that year with.
Yeah, but you know, right at the start of that year, some security consultants who were here several times did call for better intelligence gathering mechanisms. They still do say that. And proactiveness on the part of government in nipping some of these security issues on the board well ahead, with calls for removal of service chiefs louder than before.
We are heading in the right direction. Because if we say we're on top of the game, we'll be doing preemptive actions, preemptive operations, in other words, break them up before they initiate the attacks and other things like those. But what we lack currently are the enough intelligence. Without intelligence, in other words, process information. If you don't have enough intelligence to know the players in the field on the side of the enemy, in this case the enemy Boko Haram or any other such groups, if you don't know what their plans are or their next intentions, you probably will not be able to disrupt what they are trying to do. Therefore, we react. So what we need to do is improve our intelligence gathering. And intelligence gathering or information that on these characters should not be left to the government alone. Yes, the intelligence services, the police, the military, and the clear-cut the Directorate of State Services and Co., who's just so responsible, basically to secure the country internally. They need to be far more proactive. They need to improve the intelligence gathering through human intelligence and technical intelligence. These things are not sufficient. To get those kinds of assets cost a lot of money. Therefore, the Nigerian people must participate in the process. You cannot win a war if the people are not participating.
Would you say, though, that we have put in place the mechanism to be able to get the people as involved as we would like them to be?
That probably not enough. Probably not enough, because it's on a minute by minute, day by day activity. The problem, the people being killed on the roads and being abducted quite often are not government officials. You understand what I'm saying? It's not necessarily the people who are bearing the brunt of the fighting today in our country are the members of the armed forces. Right. What about the other Nigerians? They need to participate.
It would seem that, all trust, I don't know, the last time you were here, it was one of the things you spoke about, whether or not trust was beginning to improve between the police and the people. But I know that if we talk about the Northeast and talk about civilian population being involved, one of the things which the military might point to is the fact that there is civilian JTF, and this must be, an offshoot of the people trying to be very involved in the process, that they also got involved in active security, so to speak.
Correct.
Are you worried, though, about the evolution of the civilian JTF, especially now that we understand that they bear arms?
For me, no. But the short answer is no.
Why?
Because I believe in the people's militia. I'm a member of the armed forces, yes. But, as we know, most societies of this world now cannot survive just depending on the armed forces alone and the police alone. The people. And that's why in America there even in the Constitution that the people must bear arms. They can act as a militia to protect the system. I do not see any big reason why we cannot use the people's militia, provided they are properly regulated.
Let me bring this in. I mean, it's not new, but it's either those who are clamoring for it, it seems to be falling on deaf ears on the parts of those who should take the action, or they are not being properly channeled. I'm talking about this question about state police or decentralizing police. Now you have different regions who are coming up with their own security outfits, the latest being that of the Southwest. Mr. Bila, I mean, you were in the police force. Do you think that this should be the next level?
Yes, community policing is not a new concept. It is just the operational procedure. It is a platform that will not change the activities and the operational procedure of the police, but it's going to incorporate members of the public to be involved in decision-making, to be involved in whatever it is. A police officer posted to a place should be able to understand the people, their custom and their culture, and should also collaborate with them as to what exactly are their security challenges. And so security challenges differ from one community and one location to the other. And people who reside there would know very well what their security challenges are. And that for every crime committed, there's always someone that has a pre-knowledge or must have seen it all, but would not want to talk, because for police to stand on their own and not using members of the public to be part of, checkmating crime and criminality will not create that trust among them. And that's what we're trying to do, to bridge the gap, whether it is the military in the Northeast or the police all over the country. And that's why you're seeing a lot of arrests, a lot of people being picked, either before the crime is committed or after the crime must have been committed. So there's some success.
All right, Mr. Okorodudu, if I could ask you the same thing, do you think that we should just hit the nail on the head, rather than having different names of different regions, different security outfits? Just call it state police, and let's face it.
I probably will not go that far, because I think where we are is that, to be honest with you, state police, that is for me, a big issue. Big issue. Why is it a big issue? Because we haven't been able to regulate and practice politics within a civilized formula. Put it that way, I don't know. But if you give state governments police, you can imagine what they're going to do with the police. Right now, I'm talking about what I know. I think probably down the road, yes, state police, but right now, not. I certainly will not subscribe to it, because I know what the governors and these local government authorities will do with that police.
These concerns, why don't we debate it? Let's look at the advantages and disadvantages. Now, those who have their own fears, bring it on, and let them come, those who support it can come up with what they think can be done to counter it. So if it doesn't work, then we know where we are, rather than playing the ostrich and we just say, well, they won't use it right, whereas crime, criminality, some other things are already happening. Election comes once in 4 years, which they may or may not do something at that time. So shouldn't we approach it differently?
No, I'm not against debate. We can always debate, we can always talk. But the essence of society is to study. If we study, we know society. We ought to study. The think tanks are there to look at society and where the society is at any one time. Is society ready for one thing or the other, including, for instance, the right to bear arms by Nigerian citizens? we should know whether the society is ready or not ready.
We want to run a federal police system, but we don't have the budget and the wherewithal for a federal structure. So we leave ourselves exposed to a lot of improvisation in the system. Where you have 330,000 disgruntled, almost 330,000 disgruntled persons who are not well kitted, well resourced. Look at the 2021 budget, for example. The police is proposing to procure only 1,000 bulletproof vests for its 330,000 strong force.
But maybe they still have some in the kitty.
You would hope. So if they have some in the kitty, how many policemen do you see wearing bulletproof vests?
Do they all have to wear bulletproof vests?
If you put somebody on the streets, look at a typical roadblock for the police. Say has maybe 4, 5, 6 policemen. The policeman is standing with his rifle. First of all, he's working 12 hours, sometimes 24 hours. He's holding a rifle. The value of the rifle in the black market is about 1 million to 1.5 million per rifle. So how difficult is it to overrun a police checkpoint and retrieve those rifles from them?
So listening to...
So you're leaving them exposed every time they're on the streets, deployed, without medical cover.
Well, that is so far. Other stakeholders in the security sector suggest a rejigging of the country's security architecture. Talking about all of the, the things that we need to do, every time security operatives like you talk about security architecture, it sounds very appealing, very flamboyant in the ears of people. It sounds like we're really doing something amazing. But most of the time, we only mention the military and we only mention the police. After those two, that's all. But then there is a central coordinating office, which is the Office of the National Security Advisor, who is supposed to percolate all of the security issues and disperse them accordingly. When we talk about the security architecture of Nigeria, is it just the Nigerian police and the Nigerian army that we're talking about here? What happened to other agencies?
It is not. That's why I mentioned that the Interior Ministry have been deprived of 2 major components, the police and the customs have been removed. And then, unfortunately, the National Security Strategy indicated that there should be a national crisis management and coordination center at the office of the NSA. And then there is supposed to be a PC4, Presidential Communication and Crisis Control Center at the presidency. If the monitoring and coordinating center is not performing, the PC4 cannot perform. Because whatever the PC4 is going to do is going to come from the monitoring. We are not actually monitoring, we are not coordinating. And we have a problem even with what do we want our NSA to be. We've left it to the individuals. Some individual will come and they want to be part of the operations, control whatever is happening. It depends on the country. If you want your NSA to just be an advisor, everybody comes, you discuss, and you take your recommendation to the president. This is what we have, and this is what we need to do. We are running an hybrid version of an NSA's office. So the NSA is not actually coordinating much because the NMCMC is not really there. The monitoring and coordinating center is not there. So the coordination is not superb.
Mr. Adekoya, now as we wrap this all up, we began with this. Yes. I can't begin to task you with that question, but we began with the idea of the fact that there are economic challenges that have exacerbated the insecurity in the nation all over the place. And each region seems to have its own peculiar security challenges. What are the quick wins that we can get now so that we can get out of this quickly?
Unfortunately, although I'm an optimist, there is no quick win to the security issue we have in Nigeria. It will take us minimum 10 years of concerted efforts to resolve the issues that we have. Because we have to be deliberate about it. We need to manage a change process. And, change process should be managed incrementally. So there are quite entrenched issues. For example, in the Northeast, we have the DIA, the Directorate of Intelligence, Ministry of Intelligence. The military cannot tell you they don't know where Boko Haram is. They have never said that. They have never said they don't know who they are fighting against. They know them. The issue the military has always complained about is equipment. They know where Boko Haram is. They need to be equipped and given a fighting chance to address some of these issues. We may have, say, 30, 40 battalions in the Northeast. The question is, what is the equipment requirement of a battalion? Do they have that standard rationing and supply of equipment? Remember, the military was also asking for an army aviation. That's also not forthcoming. So maybe quick wins. Let's look at the office of the NSA. My own proposal would be that perhaps the next NSA should not be a retired military officer. Let's get someone who will drive the security architecture from a policy-first perspective. What Major General Wahab was saying was very ideal. The NSA should be the clearinghouse for every information concerning security, and the information should be used to design a context-based approach that is very well coordinated. This is what is lacking. I mean, we can talk about the symptoms of the issues between the PSC and the IGP, or the CPs and the squadron commanders, and the fact that the DIG doesn't have the DIG operation doesn't have full visibility over the deployments of men across the country. So these are all symptomatic issues, really. The real issue comes from the presidency and the NSA when the will to drive a new approach to security comes from there. I do believe that every other force will align. And importantly, and let me just round up with this. In 1985, 86, Nigeria produced 60 ABT aircrafts. We had, at that time, an aviation sector that was poised to be a leader in Africa. We are not looking at the human side of even the security industry itself. The security industry, if properly channeled and properly worked, can be a major employer of people in Nigeria.
Okay.
Can we get the licensed private security companies to carry arms so that rather than pay the police through taxpayers, then you have private people paying it? We can create employment opportunity for the teaming Nigerians who can be recruited, trained, and deployed.
Well, the question of the policing structure just wouldn't go away. And so for the governor of Ondo State, Rotimi Akeredolu, a major step to tackling insecurity in the country is through state policing.
I'm one of the people who is of the strong view that there must be multi-level policing. And you can have at local government, you can have state, you can have the federal. So it could be very effective. So community policing is bringing policing to the local government. There's nothing wrong in it. I have nothing wrong in it. But what I frown at, or what I do not still subscribe to, is to have a single command for all this police setup. There's no way. The single command we have that is in control of state police is not effective. How do you expect them to be effective when it comes to community policing? The argument would be that, oh, the community will own it. How? How do they own it? Why don't we give money to the local government, give money to the state, let them have their own police setup, and none of us will be happy. The community is theirs. The state belongs to the state. No state will stand by and see what we have today, the level of insecurity in a number of our states. No state will take pride in that. So the state will be committed to seeing, because any governor or most governors are elected at least to ensure security of lives and properties within their domain. So which state would now have a police of its own and don't deploy it for the good use to which we can put police? So I believe that what we have is still not effective, and combining it with community policing, no matter how, whatever grandeur, whatever you now explain to people that, okay, the community will own the police, it does not gel. There must be you must evolve this policing system to the various levels of governance. That's my own belief.
Will that happen this year? I guess time will tell. But for the coordinator of Defense Media Operations at the Defense Headquarters, Major General John Enenche, the security operatives are doing their best, putting in their best under prevailing circumstances.
The major challenge we had then was the issue of getting credible information, of which I tell you that of recent, not too long ago, we have started having some sort of support, some sort of encouragement by providing limited information, which has helped a lot. Now, if you talk about the effort being made, is a whole lot of stakeholders' effort, which, if you look at the way the governor has been going about it, encouraging people, doing a lot of things to show them that, look, both the military, the armed forces, the security agencies, and the government is involved, is interested in their welfare. And people are getting encouraged, little by little to come out. So every stakeholder, every person concerned and is responsible for security in this area is doing a lot. But like we have identified, it's not easy for some people, particularly those who benefit from the criminality, to easily come out of it. What about the force package? How do we make the force package now? We're looking at the composition of the force. We're looking at the approach, the tactics, right to the tactics, and then the operational moves that we do there. The campaign plan cell, we now sit down at the various theaters, particularly that is the various sectors in that area, and then come up where we see that there are things that we need to do better. We do it, and we do that constantly. If there is need to rotate, if there is need to change, we change, and all those things. I think more education about what each agency, particularly the security outfits, should do, that education will help a lot. Of course, the armed forces is supposed to protect the territorial integrity, and then going down like that to provide support to the civil authorities, and then going for that to support other security agencies when they are overwhelmed. So there is stage by stage. So to cut across and blame all the security agencies, it will not be too good. It's just like, and also they say the populace also have their own part to play. There are parts of the world where the civilians take it upon themselves to report promptly. But from my own experience over the years, I discovered that it takes a lot of prompting for people to come forward with information. So if we will blame, the blame should not be narrowed down to the military and then to the security agencies. And I want to recommend that all the stakeholders should educate the general public more on the need to participate in the whole of tackling the security situation, and it will go a long way in helping all of us.
Well, we'll take a short break, and we'll be right back for more. Just stay with us.
Sometimes those fireworks could make you forget we were hit with COVID in the year. Yeah, and while those security challenges persisted, the country also recorded its first case of COVID-19 at the end of February 2020. From the index case, Nigeria has recorded over 87,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19, with more than, unfortunately, 1,280 deaths. Well, lockdown, ease of restrictions, and nationwide prevention measures were rolled out by the federal and state governments, all coordinated by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19.
We're getting the update from the very top. We have with us this morning Dr. Lauren Imbe Mamora, who is the Minister of State for Health. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, where can you say we are concerning the state of the disease in terms of the number of people whom we have been able to trace? We know that we have a confirmed case in Lagos. People have been concerned about contact tracing. From what we gather, I think about 38 people now have been contacted in Lagos and Ogun State. But then we also hear of a case, or a suspected case, in Plateau. Can you bring us up to speed as to where we are?
Well, in terms of contact tracing, one, you look at the manifest of the airline, the aircraft that brought that index case, and I think about 157 on board, out of which 54 passengers have been identified. And then the hotel where the Italian lodged in
Lagos or in Ogun State?
In Lagos, about 6. And then the company, that's where he visited, that's Lafarge, about 34. So, and of course, you know, drivers that, drove him and all that, and some other stuff, maybe about 5. So put together about 100 cases have been, not cases, contacts have been identified and being followed up through what we call supervised self-isolation. Because you cannot put everybody in a ward or under isolation. It's better through this supervised isolation. Supervised isolation, that is, they're asked to stay at home and they're being monitored and visited. And of course, telephone contacts and all that, being contacted. So just to be sure that they're not coming up with any suspicious symptoms. So that is the situation right now. And of course, I'm also aware that some of these passengers that are on that flight, they traveled out of Lagos, some even outside of the country. And the WHO office in those countries where they have been established to travel to, they have been contacted. So the follow-up will also continue from that end.
That's why it's been difficult to trace everyone on the flight?
You cannot, it's difficult because people came in for different reasons and some left, they left Lagos for some other destinations.
The contact cases in Lagos, for how long are they going to be in supervised self-quarantine?
For about 14 days. Because we believe, that if there is going to be any manifestation of symptoms, one way or the other, the cough, sneezing, lethargy, fever, and all that, we believe that usually within the first 14 days, this should show up, and then we then go on to do proper testing in terms of diagnosis.
Okay, so testing hasn't been carried out on them yet.
No, you don't. You don't just go ahead because one, the reagents available. Of course, we need to be prudent in the management because if we just make it a mass thing, mass testing, then we may run short of these reagents, and when we then have critical cases, it becomes difficult to have these things available to us.
I'm just wondering, you have said that what we should spread as facts,
not fear.
Yeah. But sadly, a day before the coronavirus, was said to have been discovered and confirmed in Nigeria, on the floor of the Senate, we had a senator who wasn't very confident of Nigeria's preparedness to handle this disease. And for a lot of Nigerians, that is still a point of concern. What they would like is confidence in the ability of the authorities to be able to handle the disease should it come into the country. Sadly, it is here with us, and so far so good. It has been handled. However, would you like to address some of the concerns raised by Senator Boniface on the floor of the Senate on Thursday?
Well, you see, people raise concerns by and large based on their own personal experiences, but not necessarily the real situation. You see, if you saw something circulating on the social media in the last 2 days, the account of another senator as well, Senator Ojudu, commending the efforts put in place because he traveled and he said the kind of thing he saw on ground when he arrived in Nigeria, he didn't even see them in I don't want to mention the 2 countries that he that he passed through before getting to Nigeria.
But there are those who hold the belief that there is more to the health crisis than meets the eye, a scenario that health authorities see as not helping the cause of preventing COVID-19.
I have taken a position, and I don't see myself shifting away from that position anytime soon or ever. I said this against the backdrop of the fact that we saw a lot of the gimmicks and antics and merchandising of foreign products that is not marketable in Nigeria at all. And I said this long ago, and some people who are, advising Mr. President continue to, take a wrong trajectory. I will say that. I mean, you can't for crying out loud do cut and paste when it comes to issues like this. Let me just simply summarize it by saying this, and put me anywhere. If in the winter in Europe, America, and other places outside the world, we're turning on our heater, both at home, at work, and when we're driving along the road. What do you do in Nigeria? You turn on AC, air conditioner. Why didn't we turn on, or why are we not turning on ACs in our homes, cars, and offices? So that is the challenge that we are facing in the management of this COVID-19. I don't think we should apply same solution across. From CBN, analysis sometimes back, 3.5 trillion expended so far on COVID and COVID-related matters. We don't need to have gone through that route. In one of these our sessions in the National Economic Council meeting, there was this issue that came up regarding infrastructure, road infrastructure in the country. I'm sure you know Mr. President care about Nigerians so much that he continued to emphasize on infrastructure building of infrastructure, and he was doing much within the little resources available to him. But in order to take it further and faster, we suggested that a committee be set up under the leadership of Governor Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai, and this committee did a wonderful job. This committee comprises of some governors, including CBN themselves. And they came up with just a report that's, in summary, that requires only 2 billion only to fix major commercially viable roads in the country. That report has been gathering dust over 1 year. Yet, we have expended 3.5 trillion on COVID and COVID-related matters. That is unprecedented. How did we spend our money? I think we should be asking questions on national issues that concerns our lives and livelihood. So, if we're now gravitating towards locking down our people, creating a scenario and a situation where civil servants and Nigerians will be forced to take vaccine that the producers have absorbed themselves. In other words, this is my product. I produced it, but I will not take responsibility if this product harm you. Yet, we are rushing to get this product to force on our people. I don't think PTF should go that route. That is my personal opinion. I think they should do better.
Well, it appears it doesn't subscribe to the single narrative intention or desire that you had initially highlighted to ensure we pull on the same page. How do you progress from that?
So, thanks, Chamberlain. My role as the leader of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control is not to join debate in terms of resource allocation at the federal and state level. That's the responsibility of our elected leaders. And my role is to advise them on a public health and health security threat, both in Nigeria and globally. We've seen currently the largest economy in the world, literally, fighting with this virus, has over 300,000 deaths so far. nothing makes them better than us, right? So that we're not having the number of deaths today in Nigeria doesn't mean we will not have them tomorrow if we don't do what is necessary to prevent that. As far as I understand, the numbers quoted there for the vaccination efforts are not in sync with my understanding of what will be necessary in the next few months. This is really not my area of responsibility, so I won't get into the details. But ultimately, my view on this is you can't enjoy infrastructure if you're not alive. You cannot go on great roads. You can't live in beautiful buildings. You can't even enjoy the facilities in a great hospital if you are not alive. So how do we prevent illness? The focus on the work that we do in public health, and which is a globally accepted norm, is that prevention is by far better and by far cheaper than any curative effort. So our responsibility here is to prevent as many Nigerians as possible from getting this illness. And that's what I am completely 100% focused on. Every Nigerian across every state in Nigeria, working with their excellencies, the governors of all the states. And this is our role. This is what we'll continue to do. And the responsibility for a resource allocation will remain with our elected leaders as they're elected to do.
So, speaking about the vaccine, is it your office that is going to coordinate in terms of when they receive, and what are the considerations? Because you have so many people yesterday who told us, whoa, I'm not sure I'm going to take this vaccine, even if it arrives here. What's the consideration?
First thing, let me answer your second question. If there's one vaccine that arrives in Nigeria and that's the only thing I have to do, I will take it. This is really an existential question. The agency responsible for delivery of these vaccines is the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Of course, the Presidential Task Force will provide the leadership for this activity like it does for all of us, together with the Federal Ministry of Health and the Honorable Minister of Health. I think the question of whether we will accept the vaccine is an important one, and we're going to work very hard to educate all Nigerians on the benefits of this vaccine. Listen, Chamberlain, no medical intervention, not one, has saved more lives since the beginning of mankind than vaccination. So no great hospital, no surgery, no medicine, not even antibiotics, has saved more lives than vaccines. The vaccines are simply the miracle of medicine that has saved so many people, prevented illness, and today continues to prevent illness. We've just celebrated, in between this pandemic, the elimination of polio in Nigeria and in the rest of the continent. Just 2 countries now in the world have wild polio virus circulating. We completely eliminated smallpox through the efforts of humans, so through vaccination efforts. So vaccines are a simple miracle, and the work done by scientists to lead on the development of a vaccine in 10 months, is on the realms of science fiction. So we're going to work very hard to educate Nigerians on the benefits of vaccines, the opportunity it gives us to return to our lives, our normal lives. And that's what's going on around the country right now. NPHCD is leading on ensuring that we have the logistics for distribution. We have the leadership at the state level to ensure that we understand how, where, and through which resources these vaccines will be delivered to our people, and also planning a communications effort to make sure that people understand. My final point on this, Chamberlain, is to be honest, by the time we get this vaccine sometime in the first quarter of next year, there'll be hundreds of millions of people that would already have received this vaccine. And so, there's a lot of, there are a lot of narratives about possible harm. If there's anyone that's still skeptical in March, April, he would look around the world and see people that have received the vaccine and then are beginning to return to life as normal. And really, this is where we want to focus our efforts now. this year, 2020, has really been the year of coronavirus, unfortunately. We want to make 2021 the year of delivery an effective vaccine rollout in Nigeria. And I'm absolutely confident in the leadership of the health sector, the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, and the Presidential Task Force in leading us through that.
For Nigeria, the year 2020 would not be complete in history without a generous mention of the NSAS protest which rocked parts of the country. The protesters wanted, among other demands, an end to the Special Anti-Robbery Squad SARS of the Nigerian police over allegations of brutality. The protest, which began peacefully, turned violent. Different voices had their take on the matter, which attracted international attention.
From all indications, it appears as though the protests are not ending because, I mean, you still have people agitating for one thing or the other. The government has shifted ground time and again. In fact, the latest, with the dissolution of SARS, the announcement of SWAT, the fact that, you know, former SARS members are being called to Abuja to undergo psychological evaluation. I mean, I can go on, but it seems the protests are not ending. So what's the issue here?
Yes, it is not about introducing a new unit, SWAT. It's about reforming the Nigerian police force. It needs to be reformed. Our police officers need to be taken care of, adequate health care, education. You need to see the barracks where these police officers are in. They're really trying to work in a hard condition and then still able to protect lives. It's not easy to be a police officer. So what we're requesting for, what we're asking for is adequate reformation of the Nigerian police force. It isn't about introducing a new unit, special weapon and tactics. It isn't about that. It's about reforming. Every police officer needs to go to psychological evaluation. The barracks need to be reformed. They need to be paid good money and they need to be paid on time. They need to be taken care of. Their children, good school, adequate health care. There are loads and loads of things. But first up, it needs to start with reforming the Nigerian police force. It's not about introducing a new unit. It's really not about that.
Well, you would, of course, you would be aware, of course, that government has already begun to take certain actions, some of which we showed you earlier. We might want to show you again. The fact that, of course, that disbandment has happened, a new unit has been formed, and then there are a number of activities that have already begun,
also
certain laws.
Yes,
that's also part of the promise that has been made. Constitutional reforms, welfare of the police, compensation for victims and their families, and all those things. But then, as you know, there is the likelihood that those activities are going to take a little bit of time. The activities have begun. For instance, the Lagos State Governor went to the presidents yesterday and came back with some results, and the state government in Lagos, for example, has already begun to take certain actions as well. So these actions, before they begin to bear fruit, will take a little bit of time. So what will it take to take the youths out of the streets, so to give government some time to at least begin to fulfill the promises?
At the moment, we're giving the government time. We're all in Nigeria. We hear promises. We need to see action being taken, legit action being taken. I understand that it's not going to happen overnight. There's certain procedures, there are certain stages to how all of this stuff can be achieved. But at the same time, it's promises we get to hear. We need to see action, actually. And trust me, the youth aren't leaving the street until we see action. We need to see that those police officers are brought to book from the lives that were lost. It could have been me. It could have been my cousin. It could have been anybody. Those officers need to be brought to book. The police force needs to be reformed. We need justice for the lives that has been lost. Reformation of the police force. So we're not leaving the streets anytime soon. I think so. I think we're not leaving the street anytime soon. We have our demands and we need the government to start working on it.
Well, speaking of streets, if you go to Twitter streets, as some people call it, you'd realize that there's this, controversy about the protests, organic protests it has been hijacked by certain people. There's some people trying to use this for, I don't know, political gains, personal gains, and what have you. And the question for a lot of people is, so what is this about, really? Who do we look to? At what point do we know if this is being hijacked or not?
It's not being hijacked. I think for once the youth have decided to come together. Every Nigerian said to come together and through off their certain differences, tribal differences, religious differences. We have just one voice, and we're all saying the same thing. Police brutality needs to end. And how do you end that? By reforming the Nigerian police force. That is it. We can't end, or police brutality cannot end if these police officers aren't adequately taken care of.
So there you go. That was the year 2020. Some of the highlights here on Sunrise Daily. Well, hoping that, of course, expectant, as always, that 2021, not that we've been there before, but that he'll come out a lot better than 2020. Something like that, right? That's always.
Well, okay, that's usually the expectation. But perhaps, at least on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, it doesn't look like the year is beginning on a good note.
And speaking about Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, we have this petrol tanker. It fell and blocked major part of the Long Bridge and Ibafor. That's outward Lagos now. Now, this traffic, which you've seen here, there's a huge tailback. As a matter of fact, this began yesterday, and it has now extended to Otadola Bridge, I think beyond now.
Certainly beyond.
Certainly beyond, because that fell yesterday, and so at that time, it was crazy. And now, lots of people who, of course, didn't know that this had happened hit the road this morning only to be caught in this.
Who would have expected that on January 1 there will be traffic? January 1 there will be traffic.
I guess the traffic is no respecter of days and dates and year and time.
And you know, if people are going to read meanings into anything, and people are going to read meanings into this one, it's January 1, 2021. And this is
one tanker fall on this one road.
One road. One major road in the country, and it is a major arterial road for the entire nation. You know, taking food from Apapa to, different parts of the country, taking petrol and other petrochemical products out of the state into other parts of the country. If people are going to read meanings into this, I wonder what they'll say anyway.
Well, clearly, I mean, if you don't have to be on this road. If you shouldn't be on this road if you don't have to. Or if you know anyone who wants to do a thing or two and is supposed to, this may be their connecting road, just don't bother about it, because that is what you see. It's been on since yesterday, but officials, we did see some vehicles have gone there.
Yeah.
To see how that can happen. But you know how that works. It will take some time because they've got to, there's traffic around the vehicle already, around that area. So they even need to apply the other routes, try and get to that place, stop traffic from moving in. And so when they even evacuate the tanker, they need to clear the road, clean it all off before it moves. So who knows?
And you see that cleaning it all off thing is just, it's going to take its time. You remember the way when it happened on the Kara Bridge. It's going to take its time to make sure that it doesn't, people don't take residues away on their tires away to, other parts. And then, of course, we'll have to find time to repair that road eventually.
Well, you may need to find time to listen to the traffic officials when you're in traffic because it's usually hellish. People are usually that frenzy when you're in there. But, well, we need to see how we can change all of that because that will work for all of us. Well, don't let anything spoil your year, your day. It is a fest of 365. So it's just beginning. You should make the most of it as we plan to. So, we thank you all for being there in 2020 and look forward to seeing you a lot more in 2021. So it's a happy new year for me. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
And I'm Ayo. Marking it once again, I say Happy New Year and have a wonderful day.